Good Wednesday afternoon. Thanks for joining us on KARE 11 News Now. I'm Morgan Wolf. Let's get to your top headlines for today. New this afternoon, the Department of Justice is indicting former Cuban President Raul Castro in connection with the fatal 1996 attacks on U.S. aircrafts. 2 civilian airplanes carrying humanitarian aid were shot down in 1996, killing 4 people on board, including 3 U.S. citizens. Castro, who was a defense minister at the time, is accused of ordering those attacks. He now is going to be facing charges of conspiracy to kill U.S. nationals, destruction of aircraft, and murder. The announcement comes amid increasing tensions between the United States and Cuba after President Trump threatened military action in March, saying that Cuba is, quote, going to fall pretty soon. Other developing stories today include Russian President Vladimir Putin meeting with Chinese leader Xi Jinping days after President Trump's visit to China. It marks a pivotal week of diplomacy for Beijing, which seeks to maintain stable relations with the U.S. while reaffirming a strong connection with Russia. NBC's Janice Mackey-Fryer reports.
Days after President Trump's pivotal visit to China, the red carpet is rolling out again. Vladimir Putin marking his 25th trip here as Russia's president to show off his close ties to China's leader Xi Jinping. The welcome ceremony may look a bit familiar, the same kind of honor guard and joyful children who greeted President Trump, but waving Russian flags this time. Inside the Great Hall of the People, talks focusing on trade, energy, and the wars in Ukraine and the Middle East. Xi and Putin called for a complete cessation of hostilities in the Middle East and warned it was unacceptable for fighting to resume. Xi also said that hegemony was running rampant in the world. That was a veiled swipe at the U.S. Yet Xi is also courting Trump, whose visit here was rich in optics, even if it dodged major issues. Trump went home without any breakthroughs, though China today confirmed it will buy 200 Boeing jets. Xi and Putin are friends. They're aligned in their views on the West, but their relationship is uneven at best. China is buying Russian energy, and Beijing is an economic lifeline for Moscow. The timing of it all making this a tale of 2 visits and a balancing act for Beijing. Janice Mackey-Fryer, NBC News, Beijing.
New this afternoon, a recent poll shows that Republican satisfaction with how the president is handling the economy is currently slumping. The Associated Press research shows about 6 in 10 Republicans approve of President Trump's economic decisions. That's down, though, from 8 in 10 back in February before the war with Iran began. Overall, 7 in 10 Republicans say that they approve of how he is handling his second term as president. That's similar to the numbers earlier this year. Those numbers together highlight the president's strength in the Republican Party, even among economic frustrations. Justin, Governor Walz speaking about the Hennepin County Medical Center after the legislature passed a lifelong bill for the hospital that is keeping it operating for several years. Now, HCMC is expected to receive $205 million in immediate assistance and then $500 million in reserve funding through 2031. While Walz said that this deal will provide a strong footing for the hospital going into the future, he also acknowledged that more needs to be done.
No one's under the illusion that this just fixed everything and in perpetuity that it'll be fixed. That's not the case at all. But it does provide, at least for the next couple of years, provide some stability that's there. It provides that backfill on that reserve fund that was put together. But I think it also jumpstarts this conversation in Minnesota about what do we do to ensure financial stability across the entire system.
Now, HCMC did make cuts to programs and then also to staff. And when they were asked about that during this press conference today, Dr. Megan Walsh said that the approach moving forward is to reassess the hospital strategy.
Some things actually have to grow. Some things have to be invested in. What is a core mission that we do better than anyone, or we're the only ones who can provide that? And what do we maybe partner with other health systems to say, perhaps you're better served doing this particular service? So it isn't about cuts, it's about figuring out how do we anchor in core mission.
This afternoon, we are waiting to learn more about the charges for 2 women accused of killing a local Army veteran. News of their arrests announced late last night, and we are not going to be naming the women until they are formally charged, which aligns with KARE 11's policy. But Minneapolis police say that they are 18 and 19 years old. They were arrested in St. Paul and now are sitting in the Hennepin County Jail. This is 38-year-old Amos Ferrier, who police say witnessed two people trying to steal his car outside a Rick's Coffee Bar on Friday. They say that he then ran across the street to try and stop them, and then the two suspects got back in their own car, hit him, and then drove away. Ferrier died over the weekend. He previously served in the Army and oversaw the Veterans Internship Program at Rick's Coffee Bar, where friends have built a growing memorial.
He was a medic, credited with saving multiple lives while in Afghanistan. He was a big guy, and he had a big laugh, and his laugh was infectious.
Developing now, a former cop is facing charges following accusations of sexually assaulting a teenager. Jennifer Hoff has more on what investigators say happened.
The documents filed yesterday laying out the criminal sexual conduct charge against Jordan Zempel, the 35-year-old former cop accused of using his position of authority to have sex with a 17-year-old he met online. The girl saying the chat turned sexual quickly, meeting then in person for the first time last September. The documents say Zempel was a police officer, news articles even welcoming him to the Hill City Department 4 years ago. Except he submitted this resignation letter to council members March 5th. Zempel writing, "The distance from my residence and time away isn't best for his family, who documents show live in Apple Valley, some 3 hours away." That house and a car in Minneapolis where the crimes allegedly happened. The victim reporting she had to go through with it because he had a gun. Zempel reportedly also showing her a badge, taser, and vest, and at one point he handcuffed her. And when he later got stopped by police, the documents say he stated, "I kind of get what's going on here."
All of this unfolding after a therapist made a mandated report. Zempel never was arrested, but is expected to appear in court next month. His officer license is currently suspended. All right, now to an update on the man accused of posing as a teenager to enroll at White Bear Lake High School. 22-year-old Kelvin Lukey made his first court appearance on forgery charges yesterday, the judge granting him a public defender in the process. It comes a day after Lukey was arrested and then later released for missing a previous court hearing. Lukey is accused of using a foreign birth certificate to enroll as an unhoused 17-year-old. He attended classes for nearly 3 weeks before police arrested him on other charges. Just in, Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey announcing his nomination for the city's next fire chief. Frey says that Dr. Reginald Freeman has decades of experience leading both the Oakland and Hartford police departments. The mayor says that his career has centered around investing in firefighters, strengthening community trust, and adjusting to a changing world. We heard from Freeman for the first time just moments ago.
Minneapolis has always stood out to me, not just for the opportunity that presents itself today, but for its people, their resilience, and the strong sense of community here in Minneapolis.
Now this nomination will go to the Minneapolis City Council for approval. If Freeman is confirmed, he will relocate with his wife and 2 daughters. Right now, an American surgeon who tested positive in the deadly Ebola outbreak in Africa is now in Germany receiving specialized emergency care. This as the World Health Organization is raising concerns over the spread of the Ebola virus within the affected countries of Uganda and Congo. NBC's Molly Hunter has the latest.
This morning, global health officials are sounding the alarm once again. Given the scale of the outbreak so far, a suspected 600 cases, health officials now suspect that Ebola started spreading months before the first case was detected. Now, in a press conference this morning, the WHO Director General, Dr. Tedros, said, quote, beyond the confirmed cases, there are almost 600 suspected cases, 139 suspected deaths. And he said, we expect those numbers to keep increasing given the amount of time the virus was circulating before the outbreak was detected. Now, we are also learning a lot more about that American doctor who has already been evacuated from the Democratic Republic of Congo. He was evacuated yesterday, flown to Berlin. Dr. Peter Stafford and the missionary group that he was working with, Serge, believe he contracted Ebola while operating unknowingly on an infected patient. We were able to speak with his colleagues at that organization who said that 2 days after the announcement of the outbreak, Peter began to have some of the non-specific symptoms that are classic for Ebola: chills, fever, muscle aches, fatigue, and nausea. Now, the DRC is facing its 17th outbreak of Ebola, but But it's different this time. It is a more rare strain. It is a different strain that early testing didn't pick up. Back in 2018, 2019, there was a vaccine ready that they could deploy. This time, there is no vaccine. Now, we're also learning from Serge more about Dr. Peter Stafford's family. He was in the DRC with his wife, Rebecca, 4 young children. Rebecca was also a doctor, could have been potentially exposed, and so they are also being transported to the same facility in Berlin where Dr. Peter Stafford is being treated. And there is an additional American physician, Dr. Patrick La Rochelle, who may have been exposed, and they are now evacuating him from the DRC to a facility in Prague. Molly Hunter, NBC News, London.
Stick around, we got some more news and weather coming up after the break.